Have you ever been left so broken that you thought you'd never heal? Have you ever cried at night, asking Allah, why me? Have you ever felt the sting of being abandoned when all you gave was love and sincerity? This is my story. I was left alone after divorce. The whispers of people cut deep, the shame felt heavier than the sky, and my heart wondered if I would ever be whole again. But what I didn't know was this: sometimes Allah removes something from you, only to replace it with something far better. Sometimes the loneliness you feel is only the doorway to a greater blessing you can't yet see. Stay with me to the very end of this story, because what I thought was my ending became my greatest beginning. And before we begin, kindly subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it so others can benefit. Don't forget to leave a comment at the end with what touched your heart most. They say divorce is just a word, but no one tells you how heavy it feels when it falls on your own name. I still remember the silence of my room the night it happened. It wasn't just the silence of a house without a husband. It was the silence of a heart that had been shattered into pieces. People think divorce only breaks a marriage, but what they don't see is how it breaks your confidence, your smile, your very sense of worth. I had given everything to make my marriage work: patience, sacrifice, prayers whispered at night, tears hidden on my prayer mat. And yet, it wasn't enough. The day he left, it felt like the walls closed in on me. Whispers began to spread in the family, in the neighborhood. She couldn't keep her marriage. She must have done something wrong. Divorced women are always a burden. Each word cut deeper than a knife. But I remembered something my mother once told me. Sometimes Allah closes a door not because He wants to hurt you, but because behind it is a fire you cannot see, and He saves you by pulling you away even when your heart clings on. That night, I sat on my sajda, tears wetting the floor, and for the first time, I didn't ask Allah, why me? Instead, I whispered, Ya Allah, if you took him away, bring me closer to you. Make me find you in this emptiness. And that was the beginning of a journey I never expected. The days after the divorce felt longer than nights. It wasn't just about sleeping alone in a bed once shared. It was the way the world seemed to shrink around me. Neighbors who once smiled now lowered their gaze. Relatives who once praised me now whispered behind my back. Even friends who promised, "We'll always be here," quietly drifted away. Suddenly, I wasn't just a woman, I was the divorced woman. A label heavier than my own name. At gatherings, I could feel their stares. Some with pity, some with suspicion, and some with the cruel curiosity of those waiting to see how far I would fall. But what hurt the most was the silence of my own heart. The nights where I longed for someone to ask if I had eaten. The mornings where I wished someone would remind me, don't forget your du'as. Yet, in that silence, I found something unexpected. I began to talk to Allah more than ever before. On my prayer mat, I poured out my loneliness, my fears, my pain. And every time I whispered, Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illa huwa, Allah is enough for me. There is no God but Him. My heart felt a little lighter. It was in those quiet, tear-stained nights
that I realized something powerful. People may leave you, but Allah never does. And just when I thought my story had ended in loss, Allah was writing a new chapter I couldn't yet see.
It started with small things. A neighbor who once ignored me knocked on my door with food one evening. An old friend I thought I had lost called just to check on me. But the biggest sign came on a Friday. I had gone to the masjid, my heart heavy, my eyes swollen from tears. After Salah, an elderly woman sat beside me. She placed her hand gently on mine and said, "My daughter, I see the pain in your eyes, but remember, after every hardship comes ease. Sometimes Allah removes someone from your life, not to punish you, but to protect you from what you cannot see." Her words pierced my heart like light breaking through darkness. That night, I made a different dua. Ya Allah, don't just replace what I lost. Give me what is better for my deen, my dunya, and my akhirah. Send me someone who will value me, not just use me. Someone who will see me, not just judge me. I didn't know that Allah had already begun answering that dua, because sometimes blessings walk toward you long before you realize they're meant for you. And soon, my path would cross with a man whose presence would heal the wounds I thought would never close. It happened on an ordinary day. I had gone to the market, carrying just a small basket and a heavier heart. I wasn't looking for anyone. I wasn't dressed to impress. I was simply surviving. As I reached for some dates, I accidentally dropped my basket. Fruits rolled onto the floor, and people passed by without stopping. My face flushed with embarrassment. But then, someone bent down beside me. A calm voice said, "Don't worry, sister. I'll help you." When I looked up, I saw a man with gentle eyes and a calm demeanor. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't dressed in gold or designer clothes, but there was a serenity about him. The kind of peace that comes from salah and sujud. He handed me the last of my fruits and smiled. It's a sunnah to make things easy for one another. I nodded, quietly thanking him. And I thought that would be the end. But Allah had written something else, because the next time I saw him wasn't in the market. It was in the masjid. After Salah, I heard him recite Quran, and the way his voice trembled with sincerity struck me deeply. Little did I know, this was the man Allah had chosen to enter my life when I thought love and companionship were over for me. Weeks passed after that first encounter, yet somehow Allah kept allowing our paths to cross. At the masjid, I'd see him often, always humble, always the last to leave after helping put Qurans back on the shelves or greeting the elders. He wasn't a man of many words, but when he spoke, it was with wisdom and kindness. One day after Salah, a respected elderly woman from the community approached me. She smiled warmly and said, "My daughter, there is a brother who has noticed your patience and your deen. He is not concerned with your past, but with the goodness Allah has placed in your heart." I froze. My heart pounded. Could it be him? Later, through proper means and with my wali present, I learned the truth. Yes, it was him.
The man who once helped me in the market, the man whose Quran softened my heart, had spoken about me, not to me directly, but to those who could guide the matter respectfully. When my wali asked him why, his answer was simple. I want a companion who fears Allah more than she fears people. Wealth fades, beauty fades, but Iman remains. I see that in her. Tears filled my eyes. After the storm of divorce, after being left alone and broken, here was a man who didn't see me as damaged, but as someone still worthy of love, respect, and nikah. It was in that moment I realized sometimes Allah removes people from your life, not to punish you, but to prepare you for someone better. The day of the nikah came, simple, quiet, and nothing like the weddings people often boast about. There were no flashing lights, no extravagant halls, no heavy jewelry to weigh me down. Instead, there was peace and sincerity. We sat in a small masjid surrounded only by family, elders, and a few close friends. The Quran was recited, du'as were made, and my heart trembled with gratitude as the imam spoke the words that would change my life forever. When the nikah was complete, I lowered my gaze, feeling a tear escape, not of sadness, but of relief. Relief that Allah had written this for me after I once believed I would spend my life alone. My new husband leaned slightly toward me after the gathering and whispered gently, "Do not worry about the past. With Allah's mercy, we begin fresh. Today, I promise to honor you, not just as my wife, but as my partner in faith." Those words melted every scar left by betrayal. It was not the gold, nor the feast, nor the grand celebration that made that day so beautiful. It was the presence of Allah's blessings. And as I looked around the masjid, I realized something. Those who once mocked my divorce weren't there. Those who once whispered that no one would want me were nowhere to be found. Because this chapter wasn't written for their eyes, it was written for mine. A reminder that Allah's timing is always perfect. The first weeks of a marriage were nothing like the dark predictions people whispered behind my back. Instead of loneliness, I found companionship. Instead of tears, I found laughter. Instead of brokenness, I found healing. My husband, gentle in speech, firm in his deen, treated me with the respect I had once thought was only found in books about the righteous. He never asked about my past with bitterness. He never used my scars against me. Instead, he reminded me, "Your past is what brought you closer to Allah. Do not be ashamed of it. It is your badge of strength." And slowly, the shame I once carried began to fall away, replaced with gratitude. We didn't live in luxury. Our home was small, with walls bare except for verses of Quran we pinned to remind us of Allah's mercy. But that home was richer than any palace because it was built on sincerity. One evening, as we sat on the floor eating from the same plate, he looked at me and said, "Do you know, people laughed at our simple wedding, but wallahi, I believe Allah filled it with barakah. What they mocked has become our blessing." And my heart whispered, "Alhamdulillah." Because sometimes the greatest richness is not found in wealth, but in love that carries you to Allah. Happiness has a way of being tested, and just when I thought my storm was finally over, Allah showed me that life comes in waves. Not long after our marriage, my husband's workplace announced cutbacks. His salary was reduced, and suddenly, the little we had became even less. The whispers returned, not from strangers this time, but from within the family. "See, we told him not to marry her. A poor wife brings poor fortune." Those words reached my ears like arrows. For a moment, my heart trembled. Was I truly the reason for his struggles? But then, one night, as I prayed to Hajjud with tears streaming down my face, my husband came and placed his hand gently on my shoulder. He whispered, "Don't cry, my love. This is not your burden. Risk comes from Allah, not from you, not from me. And perhaps this is His way of drawing us closer to Him." His words became a healing balm. For the first time, I realized marriage was not about escaping hardship. It was about facing hardship together. And so, we tightened our belts, cut down on our expenses, and made dua more than ever before. Little did we know that behind the closed doors of patience, Allah was preparing an opening far greater than we imagined.
Life after marriage was never smooth. We didn't have the luxury of expensive cars or big houses. Sometimes even paying rent felt like climbing a mountain with no end in sight. But in those nights of tears and hunger, we had something the world couldn't understand: trust in Allah. Every tahajjud, my husband would rise from his bed and whisper, "Ya Allah, you are Ar-Razaq, the provider. We place our trust in you alone." One morning, he left for work with only a few coins in his pocket. On his way, he saw a frail old man sitting by the roadside, shivering with hunger. My husband didn't hesitate. He bought the man bread with his last coins and walked away with an empty pocket, but a full heart. The old man raised his hands and said softly, "May Allah never let you taste hunger for the rest of your life." Those words, spoken with sincerity, shook the heavens. Weeks later, something happened that changed everything. A man walked into my husband's workplace. He was now a wealthy businessman, but once, years ago, he had been broke, hopeless, and hungry. And back then, my husband had shared his little with him. The man said, "I never forgot what you did for me when I had nothing. Today, I am successful, and I want to invest in you." That single moment became the spark of our turnaround. A tiny shop became a growing business. The tables turned. The ones who once mocked us now whispered in shock. How did they rise so quickly? How did they become so blessed? But I knew the truth. It was never us. It was Allah, Al-Mughni, the enricher, the one who gives honor to whom He wills. As I stood in our home one evening, looking at shelves filled with food, children smiling without worry, and my husband working with dignity, tears welled down my cheeks. I whispered, "Ya Allah, the same people who laughed at our simple wedding now envy our happiness. You turned our patience into prosperity and our dua into reality." And it struck me, the greatest wealth was never gold, never status, never the approval of people. The greatest wealth was barakah, the blessing of Allah in our lives. Lessons from this story? Don't measure your life by what people say. They see only the outside, but Allah knows your heart. Poverty today does not define the richness of your tomorrow. If you trust Allah, He will open doors you cannot imagine. The simplest acts of kindness, like bread given to a hungry man, can return to you as treasures beyond your dreams. May Allah grant you a spouse who is your comfort, not your burden. May Allah replace every tear with joy, every test with triumph, and every dua with a beautiful answer. May Allah enrich you with barakah that no one can take away. And remember, dear brothers and sisters, don't chase people's approval. Chase Allah's pleasure. If Allah is with you, the whole world can be against you, and still you will rise. And remember, dear brothers and sisters, don't chase people's approval. Chase Allah's pleasure. If Allah is with you, the whole world can be against you,
and still you will rise. If this story touched your heart, I ask you kindly, subscribe to this channel for more real stories that strengthen faith. Like this video so more people can see it. Share it with someone who might need this reminder. Comment Ameen if you want Allah to grant you barakah beyond measure. Because the next story, inshallah, will be even more powerful, and you don't want to miss it.